Real quick, thanks for joining us on this episode. We know that as a healthcare professional, your time is precious, but so is sharing your vital health information with your community, and that's never been more important than today. That's where CapCut comes in. CapCut is the intuitive, all-in-one video editing app designed for speed. Forget the complicated software. With CapCut, you can trim patient education videos, add professional captions for accessibility, and incorporate clear voiceovers in minutes. Streamline your workflow by using our preferred editing software, the one that I use personally, and you can find that link in the podcast show notes. Welcome back to the MedCreator 101 podcast, the go-to podcast for HCPs on social media. I'm Dr. Dustin Portella, a board-certified dermatologist and MedCreator. I'm here with my co-host, Mimi Banks, the founder of MB Social.
Today, we are here with Dr. Mariza Snyder. She has spent more than 17 years as a practitioner, author, and speaker championing midlife women. Her podcast, Energized with Dr. Mariza, has over 13 million downloads, and she reaches more than 400,000 followers and 8 million monthly viewers across social media. She breaks down everything from perimenopause to brain fog to metabolic health and makes it accessible, actionable, and even fun. So today we're going deep into her social media, her mission, and what medical creators can learn from the way she educates and empowers her community.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. We're glad to have you and learn a little bit about your story and how you teach online.
But before we start, we always like to get to know our guests a little bit personally. Are you open to answering a few questions?
Yeah, no, that's why I'm here. Let's do it.
Okay, great. Has nothing to do with social media. So your favorite snack?
Favorite snack? Oh gosh, that's a great question. Blueberries and cashews.
Oh, super healthy. Dustin?
I think those are great options. I like trail mix, not the M&Ms and stuff, but like the cranberries, the raisins, the cashews, almonds. Peanuts are not my favorite, but they're usually in there. But that's a good snack.
Yum. So because of my 2-year-old, and maybe this is just my excuse, I love some pretzels.
I mean, I teach about blood sugar regulation all the time. And so I'm like, okay, what's a good fiber and what's like, I do practice what I preach.
Smart. Yeah, good for you. Ideal dinner time.
5:00 or 5:30. Again, blood sugar regulation.
Love that. Dustin?
Yeah, you got to get that done long before you're going to bed.
And for my son too, as a mom, I want to make sure he's not eating right up until bedtime.
Totally. Eating at home or eating out?
At home.
Night owl or early riser?
Early riser.
And what's on your bucket list?
Ooh, this year is a TEDx talk.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very cool. You've been booked for it?
I am applying right now.
Oh, very good. We'll send good vibes your way because that's a pretty cool accomplishment.
Thank you.
That's a very cool accomplishment. Dustin, what's yours?
Oh, this year, I don't know. I want to get a TV deal. We'll put that out there.
Oh, okay.
It's lofty, but we're laying the groundwork for it. Yeah.
I'm here for it. So today we're going to focus on a platform that doesn't always get the spotlight, but quietly drives some of the strongest communities online. That's Facebook. And Dr. Snyder, you have built one of the most engaging midlife health communities on Facebook, reaching millions of women through education, conversation, and long-form connection. I'd love to dive in a little bit more and learn about when did you start first posting on Facebook?
Oh, great question. As a health practitioner, I would say I really focused on Facebook probably 2015, 2016 is when I started.
Almost 10 years. And how did Facebook become such a central part of your online presence?
At the time, it really was the main focus for social media.
Fair.
I know, but to think there was no TikTok, right? There wasn't even, I don't think Instagram was really coming into play until 2018. I mean, 2018, 2019, probably a little bit earlier. I probably didn't join Instagram until 2018, 2019. But a lot of my energy was spent on Facebook groups, my Dr. Mariza page, and really focusing on community. I saw a lot of energy. I saw a great need for connection for women, particularly. And Facebook was something that I think women were still really joining, getting involved in, particularly women in midlife.
That's amazing. And how did you start to tap into that community? What does Facebook allow you to do that other platforms don't?
If I'm reverse engineering back then, one, I felt like that's what a lot of Facebook was community, were these community groups. There was probably a time where I had too many groups. I had a book in 2019, The EO Hormone Solution, which became a national bestseller, sold over, 75,000 copies. And it hit almost every list except for the New York Times. And it was really with Facebook that we moved the needle. It was mostly communities. It wasn't Facebook ads that we were driving to that book. It was through the Dr. Mariza page. For instance, at the time, I did a summit that we had 89,000 women. And one of the ways that we drove about 10,000 registrations through there was through our Facebook groups. We had a summit Facebook group back in the fall of 2018. And I leveraged that group. That group grew to about, I want to say it was probably 10 or 12,000 women that attended the event. Many of them were buyers. Many of them were VIP buyers who got the book as well. And so I drove reviews through that group. I drove women wanting to be ambassadors through that group. And so really just creating a groundswell of women who not only loved the work, felt connected, felt like they were being well supported, but then really well educated. So I would leverage these groups to create even more groundswell, kind of like a very grassroots strategy, I would say, to drive book sales, to drive registration, and to drive program sales.
So let's go back to the beginning then a little bit. So if you're an early adopter in 2015, how did you decide in general to go on to social media? Why did you decide to turn to social media? Was it because you were writing a book and there was only Facebook? Because this is, I think, pretty innovative for the time, but specifically as a healthcare practitioner.
That's a great question. I had a mentor. Her name was Robin Openshaw. She was known as the Green Smoothie Girl. And this was when I was in a brick and mortar practice back in 2012, 2013. And she would just put out an APB that she was going to show up in a city and she would sell out like a room of 300 to 400 people. And at the time, I wanted to be a speaker. It's one thing to take care of somebody one-on-one. You can only see so many patients in a day. And I just had a bigger vision. I had written 2 or 3 books at this time. I wanted to write bigger books or more books, but I wanted to be able to be speaking. And I think I saw the power of what she was creating, not only in the community, but also through social. And I thought, my gosh, if she is randomly showing up to different places around the country. I remember at the time I lived in the Bay Area, my practice was in Oakland, California. And unbeknownst to me, she was going through something really big and personal in her life. And I had reached out and was like, hey, we'd love to host you. And my office space was big enough to host about 100 people. And so I think it was in 7 days, she let her community know on Facebook specifically that she was going to be there. And we had 150 people in that office space. And I was like, this is crazy. And so I knew through watching her and then becoming a mentor of hers, how to start building community on social media. And so that's really how it started for me.
I think that's really fantastic. And it really highlights a unique feature of Facebook versus other social media platforms is when you form these communities, these groups, they're self-selecting audiences that come in because they want that thing. Whereas other social media platforms, although quite powerful, you're casting a wide net and you're hoping that your post gets to the right audience. And so I think that is a powerful tool. And so when you were making that transition to posting on Facebook, creating your own groups and communities, what was the overall mission? What kind of content did you want to share that was not getting out to as many people as you wanted it to?
It was really focused on nutrition, eating real food, which I know we've seen the new food pyramid just came out last week. And, at the time, it wasn't being shared in a way. I guess it was just a different time. And so I felt like particularly supporting women with nutrition and hormones, understanding what was going on in their bodies was a big thing that I wanted to get out into the world. And I didn't see a lot of people talking about it in general. The only real practitioner that I saw in terms of writing books was Dr. Sarah Gottfried at the time with The Hormone Cure. And so I knew that there was a lot of women that were suffering and struggling, particularly with hormone issues and not understanding what was going on in their bodies during midlife, experiencing prediabetes and inflammation. And I just knew that this was a way to educate. And I was amazed at how quickly these groups were really forming. And it was allowing me to not only support women online, but it was opening the door for more speaking opportunities. So it really was leading the way to meeting women in real life. And that continued to help grow social media. I found myself kind of in this beautiful spiral, this upward spiral of being out, speaking around the country, and then continuing to grow the community on social media.
So these are the same kinds of things you're teaching one-on-one with your patients, and you wanted to get to a wider audience. How did you learn to craft the message for social media? Was it very much a similar conversation that you might have one-on-one, or was there some learning curve along the way to be like, this is how I present it on social media?
It was a lot of trial and error. I would say this was very much the wild, wild west. And the beautiful thing is, when I think about like throw spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks, that was very much what I was doing. Obviously, there's a lot more strategy that goes into content today, but I still think there's a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and then doubling down on that based on the algorithm. Growth was a lot easier back then, I would say. It felt so much easier. I had a lot less strategy and I just shared from my heart. And this was information that just wasn't being shared as often as now that there's so much competition, there's so many people sharing the same things. I wish I knew then what I know now. Like I had no idea how much bigger it could have been knowing what I know now. But I was just sharing from my heart and really asking for a lot of participation as well. That was the one thing that I learned early on was getting the women that were in the groups very involved. I wanted to know, what did they want to know next? What were the things that were moving the needle for them? What were their biggest pain points? And so I just felt like I could really have a very honest dialogue. It was definitely messy, it was sloppy, but it was real and women really deeply resonated.
Were your early content posts, was it mostly text posts on Facebook groups, photos? Were you doing videos early on, or did that come later?
That came later. I would say by 2018, I was doing a lot of video. I was doing a lot of lives, a lot of Facebook lives, a lot of lives inside of groups. That was very successful, particularly in my summit groups that were, again, well over 10,000 women. I would have experts come in and go live in there as well. As long as you were a member of the group, well, you had admin capabilities, you could go live. So I would have experts going live in these groups. So there was a bit more strategy, I would say, in 2018 and 2019. But that was probably one of the greatest ways or the biggest ways that I was growing, not only the Dr. Mariza page, but also the groups was by going live.
Hmm. And do you still find, even today in 2026, that live is an effective tool on Facebook? Do you still do that?
Not too often. And I wouldn't say necessarily because of it being an ineffective tool or an effective tool. It's just in terms of the amount of content creation that I'm creating these days. Yeah, or maybe it is the juice isn't really worth the squeeze. I probably would be doing it if, if it was. But as a mom, and there's so many, I try to batch content, but between the podcast and YouTube videos and mostly Instagram, we repurpose over to Facebook. I just feel like a dancing bear all the time in general. And so, I had a very lofty goal of going live a lot in 2025 for my brand new book, The Perimenopause Revolution. And we just didn't see it prove to be worthwhile. And it's a lot of my time being taken up.
What is it on Facebook now that you find are the most effective ways to build a community? For somebody who wants to get started in that, what are the best practices that you're finding that are working and resonating in 2026?
I would say that I had a lot more success back then than I do today, in a time where I feel like we're still definitely well stumbled out of the pandemic, but people are really craving more in-person connection, more experience. I try to be there in the group at least a couple times a month, showing up, creating posts that are really engaging, like engaging in the audience, asking questions, asking what they want. And then things that are, a lot of where my brand has gone in the direction, particularly for women in perimenopause and midlife, is bringing levity. So, making things that are funny, that are relatable, that are connected. So I think that there's a lot of entertainment that I build into the groups to make it real, to make it fun, to help women feel like they're not alone.
Let me ask you a question also about that. Do you think that there's a different role now of groups versus pages in 2026? Because I'm noticing, at least from a social media agency perspective, but also as somebody who's in the demographic for Facebook, is that there's a lot of niche communities, especially, mommies, LA mommies, anything that you need has a community. Is that the angle to go versus starting a page? Would you still recommend both?
I would recommend both. I think it's important to niche down more deeply for groups than ever before. And if you're going to commit to being in a group, you're going to need to be present.
You mentioned batching content. We really love to understand the process, the tools, the nitty gritty. Can you walk us through your content process from like idea to finished post and like what your workflow looks like?
That's a great, great question. Well, it depends on the post. Is it like a sponsored post? For instance, am I posting for Farmer's Juice? Am I posting for Peak Life? Usually, if it's a sponsorship post, I'm following the recommendations that are required for deliverables. but also being myself and being authentic. And so I'm usually looking at a one sheet for, okay, what are they looking for? Let's say it was I have a challenge that's coming up literally on the 19th. We have about 3,000 women. It's a free challenge, a 7-day metabolism and hormone reset challenge to start the new year. We reverse engineered content for that, I would say back at the beginning of Q4. So we wanted to prime the pump in late December. Mind you, my content is very much around this particular jumpstart. So it wasn't a lot of priming that we needed to do versus other things that we do depending on the launch. But we were priming the pump for this, I would say, in right after Christmas. And then we started registration type content, whether it was talking content that's worked for us. Back, we looked at analytics for other challenges that I did. What is working? What are other people doing? So we did a lot of kind of data mining around, what was going to drive engagement. Not only did I build content for social, so we kind of mapped out, what does it look like a month in advance? What does it look like during registration? What does it look like for once it's going live? What does it look like? Because I'm opening up a membership. So what does it look like when the membership is opening? So we kind of looked at all of that content across the board. And then I got clear as to what are some of these carousel posts, are some of these talking reels, what is it that I need to be creating? And then also I know that we're learning things in real time as well. So there's content I'm going to be creating this week and next week because we see something is working and I'm going to double down on that. So that would be like a launch strategy for us. And we would be looking at that many months in advance.
Let's talk about evergreen content. Do you have a content calendar and then you have certain content pillars or areas you like to hit? What is that workflow like for just not a launch month, no sponsored posts, like your average planning?
We're looking at content in terms of a calendar quarterly and monthly. And then I'm always making B-roll as much as I can. It is such a job to make B-roll. So I'm always making B-roll to some degree. And that's happening, whether my husband's capturing me and my son at the zoo, or maybe I'm looking like I'm meditating while the sun is setting. I mean, like if we think that there's an opportunity, we're going to take it, especially if I'm going out of town somewhere. My social media manager will give me a list. I want videos of this. So we have a list of things that we're grabbing and capturing. And then every Thursday or Wednesday, I'm approving all the content for the following week, for the week to come, and making changes, whether it's caption changes, it's meme changes, it's video changes, B-roll changes. So I have final say on content before it rolls out about 5 days prior.
And then when you're filming content, you said batch create. So I just want to go back to that. Do you film like 5 videos at once?
As many as possible. If it's just me doing B-roll, like being very specific about something, I will spend probably 3 hours on a Friday or a Monday. Those are kind of my more free days where I'm just knocking out a lot of content, including sponsorship content. So if I know that I have, let's say I'm recording for Timeline or I'm recording for a podcast social media deal, I will batch that alongside of whatever else I'm batching. And then if there are moments that I can capture B-roll throughout the week that I think are really great, then I will do as well.
It might sound intimidating for somebody who's just getting started to hear, some of the things like data mining and these meetings and everything. Tell me a little bit about the team that you've built to help you with this. Is it an internal team? Is it an outsourced agency? And maybe how that evolved over the course of your social media career.
Obviously, initially, it was just me. It was just me and a phone and just working it out. And then even EA came into play. Today, I have a social media manager. We have a podcast editing team as well, and also a YouTube editing team. So we've got someone for YouTube, we've got someone for the podcast, we've got someone for social. And then I have an EA and a project manager who is putting together all the pieces, particularly connecting the dots between what is needed for the podcast and also what is needed in terms of deliverables for social media, because often those need to go out all at the same time. We're coordinating, usually a project manager and my EA are coordinating between podcast content and my social media team. Obviously, I'm looped in as well. So I would say there's about any given time, there's about 6 people involved in curating the content that's being created across the platforms, whether that is the podcast, that's YouTube, and that's social media.
I think it's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. You recently launched your latest book, The Perimenopause Revolution. I'm curious what role social media played in the creation or development of that book. Was this a book you wrote because you saw the need through your communities, or was this the kind of book you knew you were going to write inevitably?
I knew I was going to write inevitably. In 2023, I was working on the proposal for this book. Then this was kind of when I was starting perimenopause, and I had two back-to-back concussions that led to post-concussion syndrome that set me back about, I would say, 6 months, give or take. But on the back end of that, I was very resolved in that I was going to be writing this book. And so I would say it was more so a deep resolution of my coming out of this big trauma, this head trauma that was moving me in this direction. Mind you, I knew that my audience was women in midlife. Perimenopause blindsided me in a lot of ways as well. I felt very compelled to write this, but I knew that I had a really wonderful audience for it too. A book takes about 2 years. We turned this around with Hay House in a year. So it was a whirlwind. And I will tell you, last year, I felt like my head was on a swivel the entire time. And what was really fascinating, there was a lot of things that I thought went really well in terms of social media. We leveraged a lot of social media for the book. We had groups that were promoting the book. We had ambassador groups that we were using to drive reviews and to drive excitement for the book. But what was a really interesting thing for me that I did not expect, I was on a lot of podcasts. I probably did over 100 podcasts, some of the biggest podcasts in the world. And what was interesting, particularly on Instagram, and we are recovering from this right now, was that I did a lot of collaborations with people who had me on their show, who have really big audiences on social media as well. And I thought that those collaborations would really demonstrate my expertise, the sound bites, those clippable sound bites. Like I am prepared for those. I have literally papers. I am memorizing sound bites, not only for news stations, but also for podcasts. And we would share these sound bites, or I was sharing. My social media manager was like, halt it. But, when these are dear friends of mine or these are big, big shows, I feel I went indebted, but reciprocity, I think, is the name of the game. And the collaborations that I've shared since October completely tanked my algorithm.
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Decimated me. Like went from 10 million views on Insta consistently down to 2.5. Like destroyed me. And you would think
Wow.
like this was, these are big shows, these are big other audiences, big personal brands. I'm not allowed to collaborate on anything until we get me back to where I was. I'm an ambassador for a company called Berkeley Life, and they make a nitric oxide product. And I'm their chief medical advisor and ambassador. And we were just we were building, and they collaborated with me literally last week on Friday. And again, I am their ambassador. And so I didn't know about this collaboration, but again, I feel very called because I deeply believe in the product and I'm there. And we just watched me it was like the nail in the coffin. Instagram was like, no, you can. So again, my social media team, they're very kind. They're very sweet. It's an agency, but the main kind of the CEO of that company is a good friend of mine. We're very close. And she's just like, yeah, we really we don't no more. I did not expect that. I've watched collaborations work really beautifully for people and grow people's social media. And it was the entire opposite for me.
Do you have any insight as to why that might have happened?
A thought or a theory was that maybe some of these are shadow banned, or maybe this isn't what the algorithm thinks that I should be posting. This isn't the content that grew me to begin with. We're digging deeper into it. We know 100% the collaborations were the ones that really had a profound impact on me.
2 questions for you, because sometimes this is technical. Were you the one that posted and they accepted the collaboration, or they posted and you accepted?
It was accepting. And what was interesting, they often come through DMs. And sometimes I just wanted to look at it to see what it was. And it's an automatic acceptance. So it's like lots of lessons learned in this process. So oftentimes wasn't accepting. I just wanted to see if we were going to do full approval on my manager's timeline. And then I would accidentally approve it just by tapping it or looking at it.
So a few things. I wonder, because it's true that if you were accepting versus you are posting, it means that it's kind of coming from them versus coming from your community, and that you think that you benefit from their community, where in fact, what I learned from you already is that you have a niche down, super highly engaged community. And so now, in fact, your content is almost testing their community to see if this is at all interesting to all these different places. And you're seeing the result of whether that's of interest to other people or not, because that could be the first time that they're exposed to this. And their algorithm is used to seeing a different kind of content. Whereas yours, if you were posting and they were accepting, it might have the opposite because your community sees it first. It's very interesting about how that works on those collab posts.
Well, I have learned, it's so funny. I would say some of my hardest won lessons have been in social media creation because I'll go from a really high to a very low. And I'm like, okay, we're going to take this with stride. And again, these are really dear friends of mine, people I love that I want to support. And I just didn't expect. And so this was a beautiful lesson for me moving forward. Now we're focusing on rebuilding what I lost.
It's super interesting. And I think that's a great learning for also anyone else listening to this now of just different tools or how your views are impacted. And also, I think that it's very inspirational, the perspective that you have about taking it as a learning.
I look at metrics for almost every reel, every post. I meet with my social media manager weekly, personally, in terms of what's the content, how do I need to pivot, what do we see working. We are looking at other people's content, we're looking at other people's views and what they're doing. So there's a lot of data that we're taking in all the time to make changes and to up level. My team meets with my social media manager the whole team meets with all together. We meet in terms of a content meeting twice a month. I meet with her once a week. So there's a lot of kind of looking at numbers, looking at data, what's working, what's not working, how can we pivot? And then also, I love being like having content that creates levity and entertainment, but also I want to also build credibility too. So we're always writing that line of like, how do we build that credibility in while also being a place of reprieve for women, particularly in this very trying and challenging time?
Very well said. I want to ask another question. You're so busy. You're doing so many things. I'm hearing so many meetings on your calendar. What do you do to protect your own time, your well-being, and avoid burnout while you're doing all of this? What do you do for you?
Ooh, I would say that, a lot of what I used to do for me went to the wayside this last year. I had 3 PR teams that were managing my schedule. I came into the holiday season just my nervous system was still very much on high alert. Like my body was like, aren't we getting on a plane to go to DC or go somewhere to be on a show? So it's taken a minute. I'm getting back to kind of recalibrating. Obviously, a mom of a 5-year-old means that I'm full on when I'm with him and he demands the utmost attention. That he's a very high standard. He's his mother's son. Like the standard is high for my child. And so I try to get up at 6 o'clock or 6:15 in the morning. I take a walk outside. I try to get some sunlight on my eyes. Basically, I want to be up before he's up because once he's up, I'm a mom. And then I build in a lot of movement, non-negotiable movement into my day, getting outside. Mimi, I do my best to do that multiple times a day, even if it's just a walk up and down the street. And then I really protect my morning routine, as I mentioned, and my evening routine. So once my son goes to bed, that's a really sacred time for me where I'm just taking care of my needs. I'm also really mindful about what I'm putting into my body. So there's some non-negotiables that are built in there. And I love reading. So reading, walking out in nature, those are 2 things I'm doing on top of trying to do a really great job as a mom, but also do a really great job in supporting my community and women as a whole.
I mean, I think that as a new mom of a 2-year-old, that is, at least personally, one of the hardest things that I found is where do you, as a mom, get to fit in your needs? I know in 2025, mine were at the bottom. So it's really a goal. She's saying, go outside, Mimi, because as being someone else who's in California, I never know how the temperature is because I'm constantly at my desk. So that's definitely something I will take away from this conversation. And part of my 2026 goals is to move to get outside and put my needs up on that list.
I also love spending time with my little boy. Like we could do aftercare today till 5, but I'm choosing to grab him at 2. We're going to go to the playground. We're going to go play there. I'm going to get to still be out in sunshine and I'm going to be in play energy with him and just be fully embodied in that. For as much as I am looking at stats on social, doing a lot of research on social, creating content on social media, I do my best to really put my phone away when I'm with him.
That's amazing. I mean, it sounds like you've really found the balance. Yeah.
And it's hard. Yeah, there's always opportunities to capture. When your brain's always thinking about, ooh, this is a moment, or ooh, grab this, you forget about being present.
I completely agree, and I think that's something that Dustin also does very well. I think you have a good handle on how you balance.
Yeah, it's definitely better now than it was in 2021 through 2023, probably. I mean, it was full bore, go, go, go. But I've really learned last year to kind of step back, protect that time. And like you said, not every moment has to be a content moment. You don't have to capture everything. And you owe it to yourself to still enjoy life and take care of your loved ones. Otherwise, you are going to burn out and you're not going to show up effectively for your family or for your community that you're trying to serve. So protecting that time ultimately helps everybody else. And so I've adjusted my schedule that I get to take the kids to school every day and reduce my clinic time to just allow that protected time for content creation and for family as well as for clinic and the patients that I see one-on-one. So
I love that. Yeah.
That's amazing. But before we finish, I wanted to talk about something else that is very impressive. I don't know, first of all, if you saw the Golden Globes, they have a podcast category now.
I saw that. Yes. I knew that because of Mel Robbins.
Right, exactly. Same. I love Mel Robbins and actually I also love Smartless.
Oh, me too. I love Smartless. I just didn't know that I knew through her social. I don't follow Smartless on social. I listen to the podcast, but I follow Mel Robbins and she made a big deal of like getting nominated.
Getting ready for it. Yeah, totally. I'm very curious also as someone who's on a podcast now that you have over 13 million downloads. Can we talk for a second about your podcast, how you grew your listeners, how you grew your audience? Because that's also a community.
Yes, agreed. I would say that I do love creating social content too, but for a long time, I started the show back in 2018. It has been my ultimate labor of love, and it's been my favorite place to really educate. There's a big difference between long form content where you can go into the labs and what they mean and how to really advocate for oneself versus a 60-second or 2-minute reel. So I've always loved the long form content more than anything. We've built the show through a number of ways, and we've treated the show, at least annually, if not more, like its own launch, where we're driving reviews or we're driving subscribers. We've done giveaways. So I would say that we treat the podcast very much like it's its own business, that it's a separate entity. There's a lot of people involved in making it work. And I'm always, one of the things I'm doing is I'm looking for the best guests. I'm connecting with people. I'm getting into people's DMs to create really great content and really great conversations. And I would say if there was any area where I spent the majority of my time, it's going to be the show. We do plan on making a lot more upgrades to the show. I plan on taking the show live this year. Right now it's virtually because being a mom, again, time-wise, although I'm understanding that we could really be batching 2 or 3 days out of the month versus maybe a day out of the week. And so, yeah, we're thinking about ways that we can up-level the content. I just up-leveled audio again, so there's just a lot of things that we're always doing to consider, really asking the audience what they would love, who would they love to have on the show, and then trying to collaborate with people that are on the show as well. Although now that I may be tanking their social, who knows? But yes, it's a lot of a multi-tier. I would say there's more energy and effort goes into the podcast than anything else.
It's so interesting because when we post about our guests, we do collab posts. So if you want to initiate a post, great. Definitely no, we don't want to tank your algorithm at all.
And we also won't be offended if it's not accepted. So
No, we definitely will not be offended by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, Dr. Snyder, we really appreciate your time in joining us today. We've learned a ton about Facebook in particular and why creators should be showing up there, especially if that's where their target audience is going to be best served. Where can we find you on social media if you want to drop your handle so everybody can find and follow you?
Instagram is my favorite place to be at DrMariza. You're going to find, again, if you're a midlife woman going through perimenopause or beyond, and you're looking for entertainment, you're looking to feel seen and heard, and you're looking to also be educated, that it's a great account to follow.
We'll make sure we have links to that in the podcast show notes. And for anybody interested, you can use the code ENERGIZED10 for 10% off on drmariza.com/shop. Thank you for that generous offer. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcast episodes, and we'll see you on the next episode.